Look, I opened this jar of rotten baby food, and well, a butterfly came out.
Oh, okay. Well, sounds like comedy gold waiting to
Are
be
you
mine.
judging it right now?
I mean, I'm offering solutions. If there's a problem, I know I just
there
want
was
to
no
listen.
problem.
I know there's no
People
problem. I'm
love
just
the
listening.
show.
I'm not. Welcome to the Comedians in Elevators podcast. I've got my guest, Lala Costa. Lala, say hi, introduce yourself, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hola, I am Lala Costa. I am a writer, actor, director, and I'm also bilingual. So we're going to do this in Spanish.
Well,
Begin.
we can begin. Well, let's see if we can dub. It's another reason to get AI on board, right? To do that.
Wait, what?
I don't speak Spanish.
You don't?
I don't. But I, as I said before, I am anti-AI, so I'm on the fence if you want to have live AI dubbing as an option. So
No, I don't.
guess, okay, me neither. So we'll just say no. AI is not allowed to dub this. It's unauthorized.
Okay.
All right.
Good.
So Lala, you ready to get started?
I thought we started. I thought this was it.
It is.
This is part of it.
It is part of it.
Listen, to my regular listeners, I know you don't like when at the beginning of these conversations I ask you to subscribe. None of us like it. I don't like saying it. I don't like it being in here. But it's frustrating. You know what else is frustrating? It's also frustrating when I look in the back end of the YouTube channel and I see that 56% of you that watch frequently haven't yet subscribed. And I know this because I see it in the comments section. You say things like, I didn't know I didn't subscribe. And that's actually what fuels the show. Basically, it's like you're making a donation to the show. So that's why I ask all the time, because it enables us to build and build and build. And we're going for the long term here. Hit the subscribe button and we'll continue to build this show for you. That's my promise. Thank you to all you guys that do subscribe. It means the world to me.
So the whole point of the podcast is to compare and contrast the comic versus the comedian.
Okay.
So I define the comic as any person telling funny jokes versus the comedian who's a funny person telling any jokes. So Lala, would you agree that you start as a comic and evolve into a comedian?
Who started as a comic, you're saying? Say
Anybody. Yeah. So when you're like, yeah, how do you, what's the trajectory? Do you start as a comic and then become a comedian, or are you born a comedian and then you work on being a comic? Like how do you see that evolution?
I think you start as a smart ass.
Okay.
And then you build on the sass.
Okay.
I can only speak about my experience.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I started writing characters. And then I've done characters on stage.
Right.
They don't go that well here in LA, but in New York, they love character work.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting that you're saying that. Now, when you say character work on stage, are you talking comedy specifically?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are we doing
Nice.
drama? Wait, what?
Well, tragedy is always a critical element of comedy.
All
right?
the characters are tragic.
Okay.
Which what makes it, to me, I think, like makes it more, you can connect to them.
Yeah.
And you find the comedy in them. But how
Exactly.
people start, I don't know. I can only say for me, I love writing and creating characters based on people that I've met, people in my family, experiences that I have. And in New York, they go really well. I've done a solo show, a one-woman show where I did all these different characters. And then people also, they laugh, but they also cry. In terms of how people start, I mean, I guess a lot of people start as stand-up telling jokes, right? I guess that's like a goal. And then they turn it into improv or they do sketches. I don't know if I answered your question. I don't know. I don't know the answer. I don't know the answers to any of it that you're going to add. I don't know.
So they're written in a way where there's no definitive answer.
I try to cheat and I read them and I said, no, it's better to just not know. And then I'll figure it out because it's too much pressure.
You're right. So you tried to cheat. So you did look at some of the questions, right?
I looked at well, you gave me homework. You said, oh, read the questions.
Right.
And then I was like, oh, these are deep. Yeah, I don't know the answers. I'll just figure it out and, whatever.
And
that's half an hour. And I'm like,
to me, that's the right answer because there are no answers to those questions.
Okay,
right?
I passed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, these are the kinds of questions that don't have definitive answers. They're very,
That's what I thought. I was like, is there like what? So yeah, I can only speak about what I've done and what I'm doing. And I love improv, and I love creating characters on the spot. And I can
Okay.
usually, do that. People say, "Oh, like with these items or with this
Okay.
situation," and that
Got it.
pushes
So
me. Yeah.
so do you add actual jokes, like comic style jokes, or are you sticking
No,
with,
I don't
okay?
know how to do now. Like I can barely tell if
Oh,
someone tells me like a joke to repeat it. I no.
right. Yeah, because it has to come from your character's attitude and blind spot. So if you have a lot of characters with tragic flaws, I would
Right.
argue that's what,
They're
okay.
flawed. Yes.
They're okay. And they're tragic flaws because specifically, they're not just,
Well, you may think they're tragic. They don't think.
right. What do they think? That's the funny part,
They
the blind
think they're
spot.
like amazing people. They're doing great. They're winning.
Okay. They're winning. Yeah. Is there one particular, well, if they're winning if they're tragic, right. So if they're
They think.
losers and they think they're winning,
Right.
is that all of them, or do you have some that have a different
I
quality?
think, when I did my solo show and I started to look like, oh, you know, because I like to write characters of, how can I say this? People like, they're really trying to do something, whatever their dream is. And most people, I don't want to be a downer, but there's a lot of haters. So if you tell your friends or even family, like, I'm going to do this, I want to do this podcast where I ask people, comics, we're not in an elevator, but it's going to be in the elevator. They're going to be like, some people, right?
Hmm.
So they may see you as tragic, but eventually you're succeeding because you're doing it. And
Hmm.
then, so they're like that. So I have different characters like that, where they have like this goal in mind or this belief. And then maybe people are like, I don't know about this chick. I even have a male
Okay.
character that's a rapper, a lyricist, and he's not good at it, but people love the character. Yeah.
So are your characters criticizing the other characters? Is there's like
No,
a,
they not. Oh, no, not really. In the show, they commented once or twice, but not really. They all like happy-go-lucky people, even though you like, no, this is not the
so
best. But then you learn from them.
you're not criticizing you're not changing character on stage,
I
or are
do.
you? So
Yeah.
are you criticizing the previous character with the
Not
new
really. I
character?
may
All
mention
right.
once, I refer
Because
to
that would be
one, but
comedy.
not criticizing, just hoping they
Okay.
want to get along. They want to, or there's, I
Mm.
don't talk
Because,
down about the other character, if that's what
yeah,
you're
but of course, but it's an opportunity because you created them, so you can roast those
saying.
characters and
Uh,
no,
I
I
guess
mean,
that's,
I think that's a golden opportunity because
yeah.
generally you consider punching down as a negative thing. You don't want to do it. But if this is your
No,
own character,
no,
you
I
have an
still don't
opportunity.
want to do that.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
sounds like comedy gold waiting to
Are
be
you
mine.
judging it right now?
I mean, I'm
Beady, beady,
offering
beady.
solutions. If there's a problem, I know I
And
just
there
want
was
to
no
listen.
problem.
I know there's no problem.
People
I'm
love
just
the show.
listening. I'm not,
There
I
was
make
no
things
need for me
difficult.
to criticize. There's a couple of moments where one character refers to the other, but I feel like we're going somewhere else into outer space right now. But go ahead.
All right. So you ready for the first question, Lala?
Yeah, you're the flood character judging my characters, but go ahead. I'll forgive you.
I appreciate it. So, how about the role of persona in comedy? So, how much of the comedian's voice is a character versus the real self?
Say again. What? How much? What?
How much of the comedian's voice is a character versus, excuse me, their real self?
I
Oh, that's
mean,
horrible.
because I'm an actor, so I bring, you. I think you're yourself, right? You bring yourself. Otherwise, you have like a split personality or something like, right? That would be weird. So they always tell you in acting class, you're the character. So like you just
Oh, yeah.
use your experience. Obviously, it's your body, everything. Your mannerisms. But then you're trying to maybe bring light to that writing and that character. So yeah, that's whatever that means to you.
Well,
That's my answer.
my gosh, sorry about that. So, do you break the fourth wall in your work on stage?
Um, for the solo show, yeah, because yeah, I'm talking to the way that particular show, I'm teaching the audience a
Okay.
particular thing, but it goes into this whole story, obviously. But so yeah, I do talk to
Awesome.
the audience. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So how about punching up versus punching down?
Well, yeah,
So
you were just talking about that.
I was,
No,
but let's put
why
it.
would I wouldn't want to like diss my own characters. I may have a little riff with them, which is what I
Mm.
was saying. Like one of the characters likes the other one, and she's like, I don't know about that, but she likes them, you know. So it's like sweet.
The only
It's not
reason,
like mean.
yeah, the only reason why I bring it up is if you're doing, in a obviously in a stand-up scenario, which you're very close to because you're on stage doing character work,
Hmm.
is that in comedy clubs, at least in LA, we don't have that many hecklers anymore. So now other comedians are becoming hecklers that are in the same show, and they're brutal. They're brutal. I mean,
You
it's
know,
always
that
kind of
happened
been
to me. That
okay.
happened to me twice doing the male character some years ago, about 8 years ago.
Okay.
And I stopped doing it here
Uh,
because my friend was like, I'm gonna have to go with you. And I had male comics
mhm.
harass me,
Yeah, of course they
but
would.
it's like they were threatened, or it was really weird because it's a
Yeah.
lovable rapper and I come in as a character because it's kind of like just easier. And I did my
Mm.
set. This happened twice. And then they started talking to me, but then I turned it around and then I stayed in character after because I did well. And then as my character, I went and talked smack about them. Sorry.
Yeah.
You may have to, you're going to edit this, right?
What are we missing? What do we want to
Because I
take out?
forgot to turn off the alerts for my camera. Give me a second.
Oh, I don't not tracking anything. Well, so in the reference to
Wait,
punching
hold
up,
on. I need to put this on silent, otherwise it's going to interrupt the. Okay.
well, I can't hear any notifications. So
No, but it keeps coming up.
okay.
It'll interrupt, like when you're talking, it'll cover.
Oh, you can't hear what I'm saying.
Yeah, it like brings the whole. Okay.
All right. So okay. So how about cultural translation of comedy? So how do jokes that work in one country bomb in another?
Yeah. I don't know. Right? Because, like, have you done stand up in other countries? Is that how you would know, or how?
I did. Well, I was in the army, so I did. They
Stand
forced
up.
me to do it. So I mean, it's technically in another country.
They forced you to do it.
They're like, yeah, oh, you think you're funny? All right, you're gonna now do this in front of the entire company. It's like, oh no, okay,
Oh
well, here
no!
we
And
go.
did you
They're
bomb?
like, well, no, but no, I don't think so. I mean, I did make. They're like, you can't say this. Of course, everything they told me I shouldn't talk about is all I talked about. And then they're
Right.
like, oh my god, what is he doing? And they're like scared to laugh. They're scared to laugh because they know they told me not to talk about these things. And I'm like, you can't tell me not to talk about bombing when we're on a base in Afghanistan. You made me do stand up. I'm going to
Oh
talk about bombing. That's what's going to happen. It's just going to do it. That's what's going to
yeah.
happen.
Well, I have not done my anything in another country, so I wouldn't really. I
That doesn't
don't
really
know.
count because it's all American. So,
Yeah, I don't. I know, like if you say things in Spanish uh, versus English, is not going to translate always the same, you know. So
mhm.
even
No,
though
that's for
it's,
sure.
but I wouldn't know it because I did English and some Spanish in the show, and people did understand somehow. They get it through the mannerism or the
Right.
action or the face. You know, they got it. So even
Yeah.
though I
If you're
was
keep
speaking in Spanish,
exactly, as long as you're not doing word plays and kind of the vocabulary is the same,
yeah,
then you should
yeah.
generally be okay. Yeah.
So yeah.
So then how does the silence when your joke doesn't land hurt? Physically, emotionally, morally, or spiritually?
I don't know. It's never happened.
Okay, there you go. That's easy.
Because I don't really do joke, you know what I mean? So like let's
Of
say
course.
if I wrote something and I'm doing it as a character, sometimes what I've noticed is that they laugh at a different spot. So
Hmm.
then I'm like, oh well, that's a nice surprise, you know. But like especially the male character, or I do this other character that's a Spanish character that's dreaming about making it big, and so she has like this accent that's from Spain. And
Hmm.
sometimes people think they're like, what? And then they catch on like, oh, you know, but I like that space, you know, because you kind of need that. You could kind of feel that they're like, oh, they're figuring it out. And then they do. And then sometimes I've said things that as a lyricist character, and I'm like, they're laughing at that. How is that? And it's like the weirdest thing that I'll say, this is my set list, is usually what I'll do. And I'll improvise as a character too. So I'll say I have a set list of my songs, and the songs are like this. I just make them up sometimes right before. And then they'll think something naughty from it. And I'm like, and they'll, oh, and I'm thinking like, how, oh, yeah. And I go, yeah, right. And I'm thinking, how did they get that? It was, something
Why
else.
is it funny?
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, your subconscious is telling the joke if you're in character and you didn't write it. I can promise you
Like I
that's
said,
that's
hold
going
my
to
soup,
happen.
because that's something I said with friends one time, because we were dating, and I said, oh, and we had like leftover food from the restaurant. It was the weirdest thing. And we were like trying to dance, trying to do some, I don't know, we were being silly. And then I said, oh, hold my soup, let me try it. And then my friends thought that was funny, that I
It
said,
sounds
hold my soup.
funny. It
Right.
sounds funny.
And then I decided years later that my character, that's one of his songs.
Hold my soup?
But they turned
funny.
it into like, what? And I was like, wait, does that mean something naughty? Like,
I mean, you can make it mean something if you want.
I said, okay. And I said, that's right. So I remember it's always a guy.
Okay.
In front, and they'll be like, and I'm like, right. And then I try it, and then I go, right. You know what I'm talking about. I don't know what we're talking about.
Yeah, that's the way to
but
do
he
it.
said that they're,
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you got it on point.
That particular, I haven't done it in a while. In New York, I have fun doing it because people, I think, are more into that kind of characters. Here, people will say that. I think they get very offended here.
Yeah,
I have to say.
You have to toe the line, and that's the problem. So you actually it's easier if you do character work, because then if you're true to your character, it doesn't really matter. But if you don't have characters, you're doing comic, just telling jokes, you pretty much want to toe the line. Otherwise, people will be like, "You're not on our side," and whatever.
Oh, like I do an impersonation, and people love it, but then sometimes they're like, "Oh, well, I don't know," and then I'm thinking, like, "What do you care? Like, why does it matter?" Like, one time I was asked to do something, and I said, "Oh, I'm gonna do this character," and then they were like, it had done really well, like let's say a few weeks before, and then I went to do it, and they were like all worried about it.
Yeah.
That I said, you know what? Don't worry about it. Don't worry. Give the slot to somebody else. Because I was like, my gosh, you call yourself like someone that's setting up these events. It's a political character.
Listen,
but what I say is such nonsense.
Okay. Yeah, they can fill it in with whatever they want, and that's what they're doing. That's why I'm creating the Custom Comedy Corporation Comedy Club, right? Okay. So everyone's going to be welcome, and as long as you bring your own security, you could say whatever you want.
That's right. Then so no, I can't. You need to give me some security backup.
Well, I'll work on that. But the first premise is, you should have your own basic security level. All right.
Oh wow. Okay. No, I'll just stay home. Okay.
Well, that's what the entourage at least would do. So a very important question, Lala. It's advertising and self-promotion. Who advertises themselves more? The comic, the comedian, or the magician?
You know that place where you're not conscious and you're not sleeping either? That's your power bill to the electric company. Right here. I want us to be here with free energy, where the Wardenclyffe Tower meets the Eiffel Tower. But that's not where we are. We are here, where you've got the utility and you've got residential solar. Between these two, we know which one saves you money. This is where we can go in the meantime. But this is where I want us to be now, and this can be done now. So let me deputize you to represent DOSE, Department of Solar Efficiency, and let's get on the podcast and get the message out today. See you soon.
I didn't know we're talking about magicians.
You never seen a comic magician before?
No.
They always tell jokes. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're actually pretty funny, but they're not necessarily comedian style.
No, I don't know any.
Are always telling
I don't know what that is.
Magic. Magicians.
I know magicians, but I have not seen going to a stand-up I have
Oh
a lot
yeah.
of male friend stand-ups, and they would all the time invite me. Oh, come and they'll do
Yeah,
like, what is
magicians
it?
show up quite often. They're always kind of. They may not be doing. They'll just be doing stand up, but they're magicians too. They have their own magic shows.
So who? What was the question? Who markets? Who markets themselves?
Who advertise themselves more? Yeah,
I don't know any magicians. Um,
fair enough. Fair enough.
I would say no. I guess comics. I don't know. What? I don't know. What do you think? I have no idea. That was not on the questions, was it? I must have missed it.
But it's okay because there's no right answer. It's what you think, right?
I'm gonna say male comics advertise their sets the most.
That probably makes sense. Straight white male, they need to advertise, otherwise no one will care.
They have a lot of competition.
And there's a lot of competition, exactly. So you got to
That's
stand
what
out
I'm
for the
saying. I
best.
think they have a lot of
Yeah,
competition. They have to have the best promotion
yeah.
to stand
It's a good.
out.
That's probably the most rational answer for that question I've heard so far. So then, who survives better in a cancel culture environment? The comic, the comedian, the magician, or the mudslinger?
The white guy.
The white guy, yeah, he'll.
Yeah.
Well, so is the white guy the mudslinger? Is that like a default setup?
No, I just like that's the most of comics. So that would be the most that
Uh,
gets canceled, but then they come back and you're like, oh, they're back. Oh, like nothing happened. Okay.
I mean, there might be an argument for resiliency. If you're always
That's
getting,
one way to look at it,
yeah, yeah, for sure. Like if you made it this far, at least you figured something out.
right?
So that's one way to look at. All right, so Lala, are you ready to enter the multiverse? I'll take that
With
as
a
a.
special effect.
I'm going to. I'll take that as a yes.
Okay.
All all right. So board game Zoomcast, play versus performance. So you have to choose an avatar. So if comedy were a board game Zoomcast, are you competing as the colorist avatar, adding tone, mood, and shading, or the Foley artist avatar, building punchlines with soundscapes and timing?
I don't know what that you just said. What?
Okay, let's
I'm
put it another way.
sorry.
Does comedy work better when it's painted vividly or when it's orchestrated sonically?
Painted vividly. Like, how do you mean? Give me
Well,
an
do you
example.
see, right? Do you see comedy visual? Is it like, the curtains are pink and that's the kind of a style? Or is it more sonically? Is it kind of the tone and texture of your speech?
I think it's both.
Well, it is both, but we're in the multiverse. So
Oh,
unless you want to go and you get lost in the infinite plane of of acceleration, you want to choose an avatar.
okay.
This is
The
the
look.
anti-AI part. This is how far you got to take it if you're really going to go compete
I
against
don't know
AI.
what any of these things are.
Yeah.
What? The look of it? Look,
Okay.
the look. Because,
All
yeah,
right.
visual.
All right. Painted vividly. Yeah. Makes sense. All right. So here on the Comedians and Elevators podcast, we have a tradition where the previous guest asks a question for the next guest. And the
Gosh.
previous guest was Scott Crawford. And
Yeah.
his question for you, Lala, is do you feel it's better to stay in LA to do your stuff or travel the States?
I think if you can travel, it's always good to travel if you can do it. If you're able to do it, I think it's always good to travel. But I don't think it's that easy all the time. So
Right.
if you can do it, travel.
All right. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Last
So that
question. Legacy.
more people can, see your,
Of course. Yeah. In
yeah.
person. Absolutely. All right. So the last question is legacy. Who gets remembered? Will the comics Type 5 survive time, or will the comedian's cultural point of view be more timeless?
Say again the first part.
Will the comics Type 5 survive time on stage, or will the comedian's cultural point of view on stage be more
I think
timeless?
the point of view, the cultural point of view. Yeah.
Okay.
Because people refer still to like certain comics. Like,
Right.
oh, even though they've been gone for so long, they'll, you know, refer
Absolutely.
to.
George Carlin is usually the
That's what
one
I
that
was gonna
people.
say, but yeah, George Carlin, I think is
Yeah.
probably one of the top ones in that category that
It
people.
is. He's the most referred as far according to my podcast. So
Yeah.
that's the way to go with. We got our own historical. This is part of it. Is the history, the archive of comedy right here,
Okay.
and you're
Well, I
participating.
got it right. That one had a right answer.
Well,
I got it.
Well, I wouldn't call it right. It's statistically significant, but there's no determinism here. So I'm going to nerd out on logic. Well, Lala, where can everybody find you online?
Instagram, IG,
Okay.
the TikTok, at
All
the
right.
Lala Costa. Both of them are at the Lala Costa.
Oh, I love it. Awesome. All
Yeah.
right, Lala. Well, thank you so much for being my guest. And for everyone, please like and subscribe. And we'll see you in the next one.
If you're interested in too much information like in the network state or Mantipus the chicken shit, check out this video. Or is it this one right here? Well, either way. Lizard.